evening, and welcome back to the St. Petersburg By Night Entertainment Network. Yeah, I'm calling it that now. Why not? Because it is sort of a multimedia conglomerate of sorts. It's a Twitch channel, it's a YouTube channel, it's a podcast. It's kind of an amalgamation of things. So that's what we're going to call it now. We're going to call it an entertainment network. St. Pete by Night is a massive multiplayer 5th edition chronicle set in the world of darkness in St. Petersburg, Florida. My name is Kent, also known as Misha Kent on all social media. I am the lead storyteller of St. Pete by Night, but I'm also the host of After Dark, which is what you're watching right now. It's our behind the scenes look at the world of darkness where we talk to storytellers, we talk to movers and shakers, we talk to writers, if you saw last week, who create products on Storytellers Vault, who have contributed to books that have been released under the World of Darkness brand, and, you know, people who have added to this product that we love so much and have made it bigger and better all of the time. And so we love talking to those types of people, and I'm glad to announce tonight that we have some very, very special guests joining us on After Dark because they are people who have contributed to our incredible community. Tonight, we are talking one-shots, and we are talking one-shots with 3 of our incredible storytellers who have contributed to the one-shots of our community. We are talking to Nabbers, we are talking to Jay, and we are talking to Krazaz, 3 individuals who have helped contribute to our community by running one-shots of Vampire the Masquerade and Hunter the Reckoning, and coming soon, Werewolf the Apocalypse on the St. Pete by Night Discord server. And in doing so, they have created opportunities for players to learn the game, to participate in the community, and to be a part of this incredible world that we have created, and in doing so have made it even better. And so we are very, very grateful to them, and we're going to learn more about the creations they have made because they have written their own one-shots. These are creations that have come from their very own brains and the collaborative process that they have had with members of their family or friends, or, you know, the entire process they've gone through. So we're going to talk about that. And me being a person who doesn't believe in one-shots, we're going to have an interesting debate on whether or not that's even something that can be done. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. Also, I'm happy to announce we're going to once again have a dice giveaway. So those dice that you're looking at on the screen right now are available to be given away tonight. All you have to do is put in the hashtag DiceMePlease in the chat, and you will be given away those precious little shiny math rocks. Those could be yours. They'll be shipped out to you for free if you are in these United States, although whether or not they are truly united is up for debate after this past week. I do not truly believe they are. I think they are very much divided, but, you know, that's up for debate. So put in Dice Me Please, and you will get those shipped out to you as long as we have a postal service still running. So, you know, go ahead and put those out until I move to Canada or out of the country. So, yeah, Dice Me Please. Put those in the chat, and you could have those sent off to you soon. Let's go ahead and have our guests introduce themselves. Storytellers, say hello and introduce yourselves, if you please.
Hello, my name is Jay. I'm one of the mods, I guess, storytellers here on the server.
I guess I'll go. Hi, I'm Krazaz. I am also a storyteller, but I actually have a role for that, and I'll be having a table coming next year. We'll see.
Hi, I'm Nabbers. I'm not a storyteller for St. Pete, but I'm here.
Well, I would say you are a storyteller because you've run probably the most one-shots on the server of anyone so far. You've pretty much as soon as you finish a one shot, I would say within a week, you have another one shot proposal in. So while you may not have the official storyteller role, I would say you are probably the most frequent runner of player run one shots on our server. So I think honorary storyteller is definitely a role I would be happy to say is well deserved for you of anyone on our server for sure. But that being said, my first question would be, being a storyteller is kind of an insane thing to do. Let's just be honest. It's an insane leap of faith to take for anyone. Like, getting into tabletop role playing is kind of a leap of faith on its own right. You know, it's improvisational. It's something that takes a lot of courage, I think. I think a lot of people don't recognize that it is something that, you know, requires some confidence, because you are sometimes working with strangers. A lot of people start with friends or people that they know very well, but especially in a setting like this, in the St. Pete setting, you're usually working with people that you've never met before, and especially in this setting where it's one shots, where we draw from a wide community of people, you're working with a lot of people you don't know. But to run a one shot on this server, you are taking it even a step further, where you are presenting to yourself in front of strangers. You are putting out a product in front of strangers, and you're going to be leading them on this adventure. I think that takes a great deal of courage in doing so. So my first question to all of you would be, what gave you the courage and the confidence to do it? And I don't mean that as a criticism. If anything, I mean that as a compliment. What emboldened you to want to take that step? Nabbers, we'll start with you.
Sure. I've practically almost never been a player. I'm almost always a storyteller. And that usually just comes from the fact that all my friends want to play and no one wants to think up or run the session. So I'm just like, well, okay, I got a fairly creative mind. I might as well think of something, which happens a lot. Started with like D&D. Werewolf 20 was probably my introduction to that, running that for a very long time. And then all of this came about.
Okay. Kraz, how about you? I know that you've taken it even a step further than that, to the point that you've joined our storyteller team, but you started out with, like, it was kind of a rite of passage to go through the one-shot process first before becoming part of the storyteller team. But, you know, it was a good way to earn your stripes. What made you want to become a storyteller in the first place?
Yeah, well, I've still got a bit of my quota to do before we can start that. But so as we've discussed in my previous After Dark with you, I've always been around tabletop RPGs. I've always been a creative kid when I was little, and I always liked directing the idea. I've done stage plays, all that stuff. And after experiencing D&D, I've even gotten to the point of, you know, actually going to a store and DMing for randos there, as well as clubs and stuff for when I was in college. So I've been doing this for a while now, and the only thing that's different here is I have to do it for Vampire now, and I've only played that once beforehand. So I figure I've got the experience DMing, might as well move to STing, and hey, if y'all are willing to let me, I'll be here.
And Jay, you have had kind of a variety of experience with World of Darkness, but you took the leap as well to run a one shot, which I was very happy to see. I love that you took it upon yourself to run something as well, because I know it takes a great deal of confidence, and having been on a stream was a huge step at first with Don't Get Caught. Then to take it a step further and run a one shot, I thought that was just so cool to see. What was that experience like for you, and what made you want to do that as well?
Well, it's funny because unlike these two, I did not start out being the forever DM. I was mostly the forever player, always kind of too scared to take that step into storytelling, because I was never felt confident in, like, oh, I could tell a good story, even though I thought about it a ton and been playing since I was, in middle school. But more time I've played, and with a certain group I've been playing with for so long, I finally got the confidence to run for them. And when I kind of came to, this server, after interacting a lot and playing with a lot of people, I kind of felt more and more confident and more comfortable with, telling stories and feeling like I had something to share, like I had ideas that I want to go with. And, I think that's kind of what helped inspire me to want to run something and also give back to everyone who ran one shots and ran games for me, give back to the community what they've given to me.
Running one shots is something that still kind of boggles my mind, because when I think of writing a story, especially as a forever storyteller myself, it's usually a multi-phase process. Like there's obviously the concept of a story, there's a beginning, a middle, and end, sure. The thought of condensing that all down to a single session is so hard for me, because I can't even think of pacing it all out in a single session. It just never seems like there's enough time, and the unpredictability of players and everything like that is too much to factor in, let alone the fact that you all write these yourselves, which is even another step further for that. I understand writing kind of like telling the pacing of a session, but telling an entire story that's going to wrap up within that session is a mind-boggling concept to me, where it's going to be a satisfying full story within the course of a session. When you go to plan out a one shot, when you are writing a one shot, let alone for strangers who you are a completely unpredictable element, what's the first kind of thought in that process when you start to plan out that process? And I'm sure it's a unique process for each of you, so I'd like to hear from you each individually. When you first go to sit down and plan out a one shot, what take me through like the first step of that for each of you. Nabbers, again, we'll start with you.
Sure. My first step is usually trying to figure out the setting of the place. So for instance, if I wanted it in Little Havana, Miami, then I know culturally the folklore and things like that, especially I've done a lot of Hunter, the folklore is going to be based around that culture, what's going on over there, as a general sense. So I can kind of base the plot point and the overarching problem that the players will have to face based off of that.
Okay. Kraz?
To be honest, it's, oh God, what am I doing for this one shot? Uh, and frankly, it's take inspiration where you can, and a lot like what Nabber said, pick a location and figure out something cool about that location. And maybe there is something exciting. Like the one shot I did, I just picked Tallahassee because it's close to Florida. It is in Florida. What am I talking about? But it's over there. And I looked around just on Google Maps, and being a archaeologist, anthropologist myself, I happened to spot Velda Mound. Okay, there's a mound here. What can I do with that? And I look into it, and eventually Google takes me to, oh yeah, ghost stories, haunted house website about Velda Mound. There's ghosts and stuff there. Like, okay, we can work with this.
And Jay?
I don't have as much experience with World of Darkness one shots. I am in the process of trying to make one in the future, near future. But for me, usually my start is that something kind of strikes me in a moment of creativity that I really want to tell a story about something, about some sort of concept or some sort of idea. And then usually I'll sit down and start trying to plan, like, okay, how can I convey that message across while also making sure that whatever happens is fun for the players. I mostly concern myself with fun and trying to make something mechanically interesting more than as much making a super in-depth and crazy story as much. I mainly ran one shots for D&D, so the story wasn't as much of an issue for that. But yeah, mainly just first thing I kind of do is just think about, okay, what is really inspiring me right now? What's really interesting to me right now?
One of the things that I think I would struggle with and have struggled with the concept of running one shots in the past is getting attached to either the characters or the concept of the story. Like I get really invested in the NPCs I create or invested in, the connections I make with the characters to the location. And I end up wanting to develop more on that, or I want to build more on the concept of something. How do you, as individuals, keep yourself from developing too much more on that or wanting to build more upon these concepts or ideas? What do you do to prevent yourself from wanting to expand it into a campaign or wanting to grow more on that concept so you can kind of just cut it off and move on to the next idea? Or do you kind of put it off to the side and look to build on it later on? Like how do you compartmentalize it? Because that's where I kind of fall short with those ideas. I usually have to use pre-written adventures because it's not my idea, and that allows me to separate from it. I'm like, this isn't mine. I don't have any attachment to it, so I can just say it's over and done with. I can just move on. Whereas if it's something that I've written or if it's something that I've come up with in my own mind, I find myself too invested, too attached. What works best for you, Nabbers?
So I have been writing them in different cities, to kind of snap that idea of like, okay, well, this one shot's over, but in another part of the world, something else is happening. So I can kind of forget about that city and what's happening there and expanding it to be like, oh, but there's something over here going on.
Okay. Kraz.
So I make two base assumptions. Basically, I don't put much thought into the locations that I'm building towards, other than here's some things I can assume about a vampire place. There's gonna be a Camarilla, here's a shadow, go do his business. Here's a sweeper, go do her business. So I don't think about developing further than that. As for the characters, I'm gonna be honest, I probably don't develop my one shots towards any particular characters. And knowing the fact that we're in this big server and that people have a chance to take that character, or at least the concept of that character, and move it to a different table, I'm glad to be like, okay, you like that character, there might be a table available for you to take it, or you could throw it into our new play by post or potentially open RP experiences. So like I'm like, sure, I might be able to get invested into someone's character if it's a really good character, but I feel assured that they can find somewhere to be within St. Pete to express that. So
Jay.
So with my stories, I tend to kind of plan them in mind, knowing that, it's going to be something that's single off. And I kind of just have a willingness to just kind of end things, or like when I feel like it comes to their natural conclusion, just to throw it out and just, leave it to the memory, just look fondly back on it. Oftentimes, if I do find something I really like, or really like an NPC or something that I have done, I'll just use that for a future campaign. Like, just keep that concept in like a Google Docs, just kind of write that down for later, knowing that just because it was in this one shot doesn't mean it has to be the end of that, and I could never use it again. Um, when it comes to characters, often I do love a lot of the characters I've seen in one shots, though knowing the fact that they can use those in different games, or use those they're testing them out, test driving the car, so they can get an understanding if they like that concept or not. And so I think that's kind of why I'm okay with, people kind of losing their characters or not being able to use that in a more long-term thing at first.
I think I think that is a benefit to one shots. It's a really good opportunity to test play things for the purposes of writing them into a chronicle later. Is if you wanted to test play an NPC, test play how you built them, or test play a personality trait, or test play, putting them in certain situations, one shots would be good for that, because then you can, put them in a very unusual circumstance or try a voice out. And if it fails or if it doesn't go over well, it doesn't ruin your chronicle, or it doesn't, mess up a very important scene, because it's a one shot. If it goes badly, you know that it's not going to work in a chronicle setting, and therefore you can fix it before you actually insert it into the chronicle. Whereas if it goes badly in the chronicle, the whole chronicle's basically ruined at that point, or you can't use that NPC anymore in the chronicle as well or as effectively without doing a lot of damage control. Whereas, yeah, in the one shot, it's like, well, the one shot didn't go well. I can do another one shot and try something different in the future before, putting it in the chronicle itself. What are some pitfalls that people run into with running one shots? What are some easy mistakes people fall for when writing one shots or when coming up with one shots? What are some easy mistakes people in your mind can make in the one shot writing process in your minds? What are some easy mistakes to make when writing a one shot? Nabbers.
I'll say making the antagonist something more than just an antagonist of some form, trying to give them reason or plot as to why they're doing these things is great for a campaign. But for a one shot, your players are trying to just kill the last ending thing. So it's just the goal of the game.
Okay. Chris.
I think one pitfall that I might have fallen into, but I'm not 100% sure, is sometimes your concept might not fully be grasped by your players, especially if it's something you're really interested in and they might not be. So like with my one shot, I did kind of place my expertise in archaeological work. And thankfully, we did have one PC who did have a background, so I could explain through them what's going on here. But I think one pitfall that I might have run into is like if they didn't have that, and even when they did, they were kind of just wandering around the woods waiting for them to stumble into the right clue. And I can see why, like, oh, like maybe I should have something more interesting there. I did, still have something. And I played with it a little bit more, but if something's not directly happening and they're not getting the clues they need, they might not grasp the location properly. So definitely think about possibilities of making sure that it's not something too specific or too niche for a general audience.
Okay. Jay.
So two things that I've noticed, and even I have done before. One of I think the greatest flaws, the greatest mistakes, is trying to overplan, because more often than not, people are just going to come in with the craziest ideas and craziest plans, especially because it's a one shot. So it is almost encouraged that, hey, I don't have to worry about the consequence after. Let me do something crazy. And so oftentimes you're going to get thrown off your game, and all the plans that you've just written out is just going to go out the window. You're going to have to kind of improvise to figure out what you're going to do. Instead of wasting that mental energy on that, you could be focusing on other aspects or trying to make sure, okay, I'm not so rigid in my mindset. I'm allowing things to kind of alter and change as they go along. And another thing that I also notice is oh God, now I just forgot it. Sorry, but yeah, I think that's the main flaw right there, though, is oh yeah, I remember now. It's pacing. One of the major things is pacing, because it's really easy to get caught up in either a scene trying to describe something, or just, really in a combat that's going on for a bit too long. And it's really easy just for things to drag on for way too long. And especially if you're not prepared, it can get really a very long session or become a two shot.
One thing I've noticed with pre-written one shots or pre-written adventures is you can tell a person who's had experience writing these adventures, people who have clearly run them versus people who haven't, because people who are experienced with writing these and experienced with running these will write in shortcuts, will write in like, if you run out of time, here are adventure, or here are scenes or moments you can cut, or here are places that you can skip over, or if they miss this clue, here's another place you can drop this clue in. Like, they know quite well the unpredictability of players, or they know, like, you're going to likely spend too much time in this scene, or they're going to probably miss these rolls, and they will write in the possibilities for getting around hiccups because they can plan for that. Whereas other ones, less experienced writers will not give you an out. They'll basically just be like, if they screw up here, you don't know where to go. And they'll put you in a position where you're just kind of screwed. Like, you won't, it's on you at that point to just figure out what to do from there. And as somebody who didn't write it, I found that it can be very difficult to know what to do after that. Like, it takes some really creative finagling to just be like, oh, look, there's that piece of paper on the ground that tells you what to do now because I've got nothing. Like, we've got to move on, I guess. Like, so I think that that's an interesting thing. And to your point, like, that is a part of pacing, but it's also a part of, like, you can't rigidly stick to what you had planned for timing or for the fact that players are going to play and they might not succeed on the role you need them to succeed on, or they might not be able to hit every scene you need them to hit because that's just the way the game works. And so I think that's a very interesting thing. So having run these pre-written adventures for D&D and World of Darkness separately, I have found that it's a lot easier to run a pre-written D&D story than it is to run a pre-written World of Darkness story. Mostly because a pre-written D&D story relies heavily upon mechanics, whereas a pre-written World of Darkness story doesn't. In your experiences having run one-shots or stories, what have you found to be the case in regards to campaigns or, one-shots as a whole? What have you found to be one of the easier systems to run? And as a sidebar to that, what World of Darkness splat would you think is more fitting for one-shots? Nabbers.
Based off of a general whole for one shots, I think definitely Monster of the Week is one of the better systems for a one shot type. D&D's okay, but it can get longer and then become a campaign. As for what splat, I definitely would advocate more towards Hunter, only because you can have actual World of Darkness creatures. You can have more of a cryptid type of creature or folkloric type of creature that you can have them going after and be a little bit more lenient with what's going on.
Kraz.
Okay, there we go. We're definitely going to have to agree that Hunter is probably one of the best systems for a more flexible, or best splats for a more flexible approach to one-shot making. I think a lot more people understand being a hunter and not having to dedicate their time to figuring out a bunch of clans or bloodlines or werewolf houses or whatever they're called. Sorry. But and they can be just like, okay, yeah, I'm a business guy. Oh yeah, I'm the guy who flies drones. Oh yeah, I'm the guy who uses the power of God and anime. Stuff like that. As for other systems, I've only ever played D&D 3rd and 5th. So I do have to say that playing 5th or D&D 5th edition is probably the easiest I've played with doing one shots. In fact, for a club university club fair, I basically had to do several hundred mini one shots. Slay the dragon, get the hoard of treasure. That's it. That's all it was. And we got tons of people at our booth, and we had a big cardboard dice, and it was fun. But unfortunately, nobody actually came. They just took the flyer, had fun, and left. But still, like, that was probably the most exhausting. Here's a one shot. Kill this dragon wolf. Thank you. Bye.
Jay.
So I think any system that prioritizes the little mechanics is generally best for one shots. I find like, Monster of the Week or a lot of systems that like get what they're called, like Powered by the Apocalypse, I think they're called, where it's more just like you get a certain set of like, here's these cool abilities you get, and then you can just use them. Don't really have to think much about them. And I find that those are really great for one shots. I've found even some success with, I love Cyberpunk Red, because to me that's been always super easy because I just have to look at real life and think about it. When I want to think about a cyberpunk's dystopian future, I just look at my actual life and go, okay, I can base this off of something I'm going through or something, I've seen in the news. In terms of the splats, I think that applies as well because Hunter, I think, is the least mechanically intensive game or splat out of all of them. You have the least, like, not really have many powers, and the powers are a lot more broad in general. So you don't have to worry as much about the intricacies, and you don't have to worry about as much as trying to figure out how to get into that character because, you know how to be a person, you know how to consider, like, you can really easily think, okay, how would I react to seeing some like chupacabra werewolf monster in front of me? It's like pretty easy to really consider. So I think, yeah, Hunter works well, especially if, with like a, monster of the week kind of thing where like, villain of the week, you just kill one thing and like, oh, it's done. Don't have to worry about how that wrapped up or anything else.
Okay. In our next segment of sorts, I'm going to get into a very heated kind of subject matter. But before we do that, I want to remind people that we are having a giveaway tonight. Those dice you see on screen are available for giveaway. They're these beautiful pink and clear dice. Those can be yours if you put in the hashtag DiceMePlease in the chat tonight. I will ship them to you for free if you are in these supposedly United States. They could be yours if you want them. So put in hashtag DiceMePlease and they will be shipped to you. They can be used in any World of Darkness Chronicle. You get 10 of those pink dice and 5 of those clear dice. They're really nice, and they were well-traveled. They were taken to Indianapolis and back to Florida. Yeah, they've been around, but they haven't been used very much, so they are very, very new. They could be used in any World of Darkness Chronicle, and they could be inspiration for a nice, cool character. So get in the running for those, and they could be yours. So put in the hashtag DiceMePlease, and those will be yours. So here is my hot take, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. One-shots are a disservice to the World of Darkness. And this is why I say so. The World of Darkness system, the setting, is not designed for one-shots. With how much effort they have put into lore, with how much effort they have put into the setting, with the way it's written, it is not designed to be cut into bite-sized pieces. There's too much information. They put too much emphasis on, deep dives into lore. They put too much emphasis into character building and thinking out, trauma and thinking out, putting all this emphasis on designing characters with thoughts and feelings and, touchstones and all this kind of stuff. They really want you to design well thought out characters, and a lot of the mechanics even are based on long-term storytelling. So for them to even write one-shots, and even in the one-shots themselves, the ones they do write, they always say use these as inspirations to start a chronicle. Use these as, or insert it into your chronicle, or, they always say put it as part of something. It's never meant to be something that's done on its own. Yeah, they try to sell them as something that you can do at a convention, and they have tried to market it to sell the game at conventions, because how else are they going to sell books, or how else are they going to, get new players into the game? But realistically speaking, the game itself is not designed as a one-shot-esque game. Monster of the Week, perfect for one-shots. D&D, you can run small adventures. You can run one dungeon in a night and be good. You can have a full game in that world in one night. Fine. But Vampire, Hunter maybe, but even Hunter, you can put a lot more, you can get a lot more out of the game by putting the effort in. Same with Werewolf, Wraith, Mummy, all these games. I believe you're doing the game a disservice to try and put it into a bite-sized piece. That's not a discredit to what you individuals do with your one-shots. I think they're amazing. I read your one-shots, and I think you do such incredible work with what you do. But I think that you're doing the best you can with that, and I think that it does a disservice to what they've created by trying to do one shots. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Nabbers, we'll start with you.
Sure. I can see your take on it. I can definitely see your side of believing that it's a disservice. I don't believe that, mostly because you can do things in a one shot where it's the coteries day-to-day basis, where you just do things at a random time with different coteries. Hunter cells, you do things with your different cells. Your pack, it's a story that you've done with your pack, so it's telling stories in bite-sized pieces. But I do also understand, like, it's really just to get the hook of, like, come play with us, come join us, because that's what games do.
Sure. Okay. Kraz.
So I definitely am on the side of agreeing with you, Ken. I first off, I think even the term one shot is a disservice. If it were up to me, I'd call them springboards or springboard sessions, something like that. Basically, here's the elements you need to start a game, start a real campaign. And World of Darkness, I agree. I will say that if they formatted the book better, they could probably the actual process of making a character isn't that bad. I would say that, like, having to sit down and roll a bunch of dice can suck for taking time and picking your spells and stuff. And we kind of have that with disciplines, but since you're much more limited in the amount of disciplines you have, I think it's much easier. Because I know that if you got a wizard or two during a D&D one shot or character creation session, that could take all night. But I think it in fact is designed to do long play and not necessarily do everything one shot, because even my last one shot, I couldn't even get the combat encounter done. I'm like, and I'm having a hard time, like, adding the social aspect into my one shots that I'm making so far. So I can totally get it.
Yeah. Jay.
So I feel that that's kind of the point of one shots, though, is to be the gateway drug, the introduction into whatever system you're doing, or it's also can be used for people who can't just really afford to have that time for a long-term commitment game. While sure, you can may find other games that might suit that better, there'll always be different systems to better utilize what you're exactly looking for, whether it be shorter-term games, long-term games, story, mechanics. I do think that World of Darkness can still support that, and it does really good for getting people in and interested in the game. While it may not be the best way to utilize all its mechanics, and especially this system itself does support a long-term play more, I think you could still easily run a one-shot, because a lot of and you have all the lore for vampires, but realistically, if you're a bunch of real young licks vampires, you don't. Why would you care about a Gehenna War? Why would you care about these elders or all this like crazy stuff? You're like, I'm just trying to find a room this week, or like I was a trash man and I'm a vampire. What am I supposed to do? You could easily make stories based off these really street level and personal stories. Just these vampires might have to deal with, drugs, violence, gangs, just all these day-to-day issues that don't have to rely on the century-long lore. Hunter especially, because they don't really have that century-long lore anymore. They just have to focus on keeping their community safe. And werewolves, I mean, the nations is shattered. They can also usually focus on these really personal story, though. Hey, how are these creatures going to interact with these, their day to day with these really human issues?
So, as an interesting kind of point to somewhat contradict this, the character basis of World of Darkness characters is survival. Vampires are supposed to be surviving. They're meant to be surviving the fight against the beast and the upcoming Gehenna up until 5th edition, but also losing to the beast. Werewolves are meant to be surviving the death of Gaia. Hunters are meant to be surviving the encroaching darkness. It's all about surviving. One shots are all about recklessness. Let's be honest. One shots, it's fuck it, it's a one shot. Do whatever you want. Like, lean in, take risks, whatever. Throw it against the wall and see what sticks. It's a one shot. Who cares, right? Fuck consequences. It's a one shot. Go for it. Might as well, right? What? You're not going to play that character after today. Who cares? So in that, it's an inherent contradiction. If you're going to be doing your character any justice in the way World of Darkness writes those characters, you are contradicting the character itself as it's intended by playing it recklessly in a one shot. 2. Where was I going with this? Crap, I lost it. But anyway, so in that, there's a contradiction right there. So with that as well, oh God, I just lost what I was going to say. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. So with the contradictions of one-shots pushing for recklessness versus the survival mentality of World of Darkness characters, do you think that there's any potential issues in that concept? The recklessness of one-shots with the survival mentality as characters as they're meant to be written, because you also have to consider they have things like keep the masquerade, don't expose humans to the evils of the world like hunters are supposed to, protect Gaia and don't pull back the veil. Like, how do you do all that if you're going into the reckless? Oh, I remember the other point. Also, in one shots, the World of Darkness mechanics system isn't easy. It's clunky. It's slow. You can't do combat quick and clean in a one-shot. It is a slow, drawn-out, ragged process unless you do something like 3 rounds and out or 1 roll off. Like, if you play it off as it's written and as it's intended, you'll spend a good majority of your one-shot in one interaction. If you play it out the way it's written, that one conflict could take 2 to 3 hours, which could be your entire one-shot time. So the system itself isn't even built for one-shots. So it's kind of a contradiction there, too. Love to hear your thoughts. Nabbers, we'll start with you.
Sure. On the point of recklessness, out of my so many one-shots that I've done so far, only one group has really done it recklessly. Others have been like very planned out, making sure they have all the information as I give them like the basic information they would have and then information along the way. Very planned out, very much playing a survival game. To your point, the team that did be a bit reckless, they all died at the end of it. It's a good time. I'm forgetting your second. What was your second one?
My second point was the system's not designed for one-shots. Like, the system itself is very clunky if run in a one-shot, especially combat, which a lot of one-shots do entail at some point. There's got to be a physical conflict, but the system is long and clunky in conflicts.
To that point, I haven't really had any issues, and I think that's just my combating style isn't 3 and out, and it's not like, oh, you keep going and you keep going and you keep going. But I also definitely, before I do anything with the game, I try to decide, okay, there's these many characters here who have this many health points. It's all collective together. So let's match that or downplay the monster or the creature to kind of match that where they would have somewhat of a chance. So I think that's where it's basing off of, like, the creature usually has like maybe 1 to 3 attacks that they can do if they have minions or things like that. Whereas you have at least 4 to 5, sometimes 3 players who all just kind of bat at the creature. So the creature's going to go down quicker.
Sure. Chris.
Yeah, I definitely agree on the 3 rounds and out, like, mechanical depth thing. As Jay and I would know, in our time in Don't Get Caught, we've definitely had a whole session taken up by combat. At least 2 of them, if I can recall. That's not to detriment Nikki at all. It's just how the dice rolled, and that's just how the game works. As for like the aspects of risk and such, I mean, it definitely comes down to the players. You never know if your players are going to be like, okay, let's respect the ideas behind this, or let's not and go crazy. Hell, when I first became a moderator here, and one of the first one shots or games that I decided to lurk in was a one shot that Mimic was doing. And one of the things that one of the players did was, there's an enemy vampire? I'm going to Diablerize him. Okay, let's go. And I remember, I wonder if Kent remembers the DM that Mimic got sent him about how exactly does Diablerizing work again? Let's go. Yeah. So that was fun. So there's definitely an aspect of risk. Like, let's take some risks. Why not? It's a one shot. But I think there's also a worthwhile element, especially in something like Hunter, where, yeah, a bunch of fledglings who think they're dead anyway, you're literally a monster of the night. Or even a hunter that's naive. Those are real scenarios that really exist. Like, of course, there's a group of hunters that don't know what they're doing and go and get themselves fucked over by a monster they weren't ready for. So I think those can fit within the World of Darkness just fine, because they should be happening all the time.
Okay. Jack?
Kraz was kind of saying my point there, that I think that recklessness is a part of World of Darkness that's not often seen. Because I feel like oftentimes people get so attached to their characters, to their concept, that they enter a like mode of just defending their character with every last fiber, doing anything in their power to make sure that character can keep going, which can make sense. Obviously, those characters want to live, but sometimes the best stories are told when you're ready to let go, when you're ready to just let that character die or let something happen to them that will progress a plot in a way that matters. And even with like one shot, that recklessness can tell some of the best stories. I've had amazing stories of players doing the most out of the pocket, like crazy concepts, the crazy ideas, and they just go out and either they fail spectacularly, just resulting in all of them dying, or they somehow succeed with their crazy plan and it's remembered. I still remember several one shots more than even campaigns because of those crazy high moments. The mechanics of World Darkness, though, are harder to use with one shot formats. That I think the idea that you're using World Darkness for one shot because you want to embody that horror aspect. World of Darkness has a very specific vibe that a lot of other systems can't really do. Like D&D, it's going to be really hard to make a horror game. So you can run Curse of Strahd, but it's not really that scary. I never really feel scared in Curse of Strahd. I never felt scared really playing a D&D game. World of Darkness can do that. And it may not have the best mechanics for at least running something quick and easy, but it can be the best system for trying to convey that theme and that idea.
That's fair. And I think there's something about the relatability of World of Darkness that gets people in that horror mindset, because the fantasy horror mindset, and I've talked about this countless times on this specific program, is something that appeals to people about World of Darkness. Is it is our world for all intents and purposes. It's a world that we can all relate to because it's set in a world that we live in. We're all supposed to believe that this is our world. It's a different view on our world. It's drawing back the mask of our world. And if you get deep enough into it, some people have gone too deep, but if you get deep enough into it, you can believe that this is actually going on, that this is a peek behind a curtain of our world, and that this could possibly be real. Now, in some older editions, it's gone a little too far, but, it could be possible. Whereas Dungeons and Dragons, that's not possible. Like, we don't have dragons flying around, we don't have castles and big spell battles happening, and like that's not the world we live in. There's a certain detachment there. There's a certain, you can't put yourself in that situation. Your imagination only goes so far. But this, that there is a certain connection there that you do feel, and so you can get a little bit frightened by the possibilities of these things. Yeah, you can feel the real world implications, as Magus says in the chat. So yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying there, and so I do totally understand that. A question I would ask for all of you: do you feel any pressure in representing a system when you run a one shot, like properly representing a system? Because I've found, and especially in running at a convention, which I did for the first time this year when I ran at Gen Con, I felt a pressure to like properly present a system the way they want it presented. Like, there's always this grandiose philosophy of like, well, if everybody had fun, that's the most important thing, right? Sure, but also like, do you feel a responsibility to present the rules properly, to have run the game as it's meant to be run, or do you ever feel that kind of pressure on you when running games or running one shots or anything like that? I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on that. Do you ever feel any kind of anxiety about that or anything? Nabbers.
On a basic level, no. But I think that's probably just my ego, honestly.
Good. Kraz.
So yes, and that's why I've been so slow in getting them in. But to get onto that, I honestly can't. I think for someone like you who is in deep in the lore, is aware of the different mechanical complexities that comes with this game and all the years of stuff behind it, I think that pressure is harder on someone like you who knows all these things, who feels like, oh God, they're not going to know about Beckett and his jihad diary. It's like, does anybody at the table who's new to World of Darkness really care? Maybe if they play Bloodlines, but that's about it. So like that pressure might just be the weight of the burden of knowledge that you might have, the burden of experience. And maybe if just learning to let that go a little bit, learning to just focus in on, let's do a ground level game, that might help. If somebody like you or somebody else who's experienced might be struggling with that kind of pressure. But definitely, at least in the mechanical aspects, I will agree. Like, it's like, oh God, is there enough combat in this? I don't know. Is there enough social interaction? I don't know. Is this going to be an adequate dip into this world? Maybe not, and probably not. And just learn to accept that is all I can say.
Jay.
So I definitely felt this in the aspect of whenever I played with my other group, there was often times where I would find a system that I would just get so fascinated with, and I'm immediately like, I want to run something in this system. And I would have to like scour as much knowledge as I can, and I would sometimes just get so caught up in trying to figure out everything that I stopped being able to make something because being so caught up in that paralysis. But the more I've ran, the more I played, I kind of realized like, well, to be honest, it's more about I more just see the system as something for me to use to kind of convey my storytelling. Like this more of a tool for me. I'm not a tool for the system, So if I need to bend, adjust, or if I mess up a bunch of rules, it kind of doesn't matter as long as that, like, hey, if I'm gonna make sure that everyone has fun, that the story is progressing like I always imagine it to, keep the pace going. That's ultimately all that matters. And if someone really has a problem with it, I don't know, go play at a Chronicle or something. Go to a convention, stinky nerd. No, but yeah. So that's what kind of my philosophy is on that.
So this next question is going to be more for Nabbers, and I apologize for excluding you and Krazaz and Jay on this one a little bit more. But Nabbers, you tend to prefer 20th anniversary to 5th edition. I know that when you run Chronicles and a lot of your one shots or a lot of your games tend to be more towards 20th anniversary. Why do you prefer 20th over 5th? I would love to hear kind of your perspective on this. Now, I started with the older edition, so I totally understand the kind of transition to 5th was a little bit rougher for me, but I chose it because I was teaching people 5th edition. It was the easier game to teach a newer crew to start on. But why 20th? What do you prefer about 20th over 5th edition, and what do you find is, preferential in that?
Sure. I don't think I prefer per se. I think I'm still like in the transition period.
Sure.
Because again, I started at Werewolf 20. That had been my game forever.
For sure.
And so, now transitioning over to Werewolf 5, I'm still using like Gnosis. And I'm like, well, that's not even a thing anymore. So I can't even use that. But it still like slips out of the tongue when I know that something is supposed to use it in Werewolf 20. So that's kind of where that falters in my like the little scripts that I write down is you'll see a lot of like the Werewolf 20 or the 20th edition terminology, but I'm trying to do it in a 5th edition level.
So it's not
playset.
necessarily a preference, it's just habit. It's really like
It's the transition
Oh,
over.
okay.
Yeah.
So but you don't have a preference one way or another. It's just a matter of just moving from okay, so it's just the transition process. Okay.
Absolutely.
But is there anything that you okay, then this is my next question. Is there anything you wish 5th edition would bring in from 20th anniversary? Because I know that there's a lot that I wish from especially vampire. I was a vampire nut before I discovered werewolf. I discovered werewolf through 5th. So I'm in love with werewolf now, obviously. But I only really have a foundation in 5th. Is there anything you wish 5th would bring over from 20th?
Absolutely. I noticed in Werewolf 5 that they gypped a lot of the gifts.
Yeah.
But also they've almost eradicated a lot of the Axis spirits.
Mhm.
So like the worm, the weaver, and the wild spirits they'll have like snippets of it
Yeah.
and they have like a smaller list, but there's a whole access of previous Werewolf 20 spirits that you can use and you can pull from and they give you details from it. And Werewolf 20 has like Werewolf 5 has like none of them.
It's very condensed. It's very, very, very condensed. I agree. I agree. I would love more. I want more. So I'm hoping one day they expand upon that. But great. Okay. Anyway, to bring everyone else back in, before we get into it, I'm going to ask for you guys to talk about getting more people to do one shots because I think it's a great experience. I love that all of you took that leap, and I would love for all of you to encourage others to take that leap because I think it's a wonderful thing, and I love to see people having the courage to do so. I love to see people doing that. And I'm so proud of each of you for doing it. And I'm thankful for doing it for the server because it helps strengthen the community. It helps bring more activity to the community. Obviously, we only have so many storytellers and we all have lives that we have to live on top of running things on the server. So having more opportunities for people to play is a wonderful thing. So thankful to all of you for running these games on the server and giving people opportunities. But having more people do it, like a big shout out to Brent, a big shout out to Mimic, big shout out to everyone else who has run one shots on the server. But any tips you would have or any encouragement you can give to people who are running on to run one shots on the server. But we'll do that in just a moment. This is going to be one last call out for our giveaway. We are giving away these beautiful pink and clear dice tonight on the server. If you live within this country, I will ship these dice to you. So if you put in the hashtag DiceMePlease in the chat, you could get these dice shipped out to you for free. So put in the hashtag DiceMePlease and we will be drawing the winner of those dice after this next segment on the show before we sign off for the evening. So put in the hashtag DiceMePlease and I will ship these dice off to you as soon as possible after the show tonight. So, what advice would you give to somebody who has been hesitant, who has been nervous about the idea of writing a one-shot, of potentially, applying to run a one-shot on our server? Maybe somebody who's interested but has been holding back on the idea of submitting to run a one-shot on the St. Pete by Night server. Nabbers.
Sure. I would say if you've got an itch to play World of Darkness and you're not at a table or just don't have the availability to do a full chronicle at this time, then your best shot is the one shots, whether you're playing or running it. But if you want to run it, I would suggest doing an outline, having the basic plot, some NPCs, the initial antagonist and then filling in from there is usually the better way of kind of starting off, filling in the gaps.
Krazaz.
Along with my advice that I gave kind of unprompted, uh, don't worry about not hitting every single possible thing to get the experience down. As long as if you're great at one particular aspect, that alone can enhance the experience. Especially if you're not looking to like start from ground zero. That's one of the benefits of being part of St. Pete by Night, is that there is other ways that people can go. It's not just, oh, you're starting the game and you have to think of everything yourself. No, we have plenty of great number of resources about our server, our little micro setting. We're adding more to those every day. And there's a lot of inspiration you can take just by listening from our backlog, as well as any other things you can ask any one of us, any one of the storytellers. I'm willing to take DMs if necessary about like, hey, can I get help bouncing some ideas off of you for a one shot? I'd be like, sure, why not? And hell, I just did some with my dad just to get my one shot that I was writing, going. And he was like, well, let's think about it from, these other people's perspective. Let's work it this way. I'm like, oh, well, thanks for helping me write my one shot, Dad. There's always that aspect. I'm sure that there's plenty of other STs or even just moderators who are here, and if they're not playing in your one shot, or they might not potentially be, I'm sure someone's willing to bounce ideas off of you. So don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to start setting up. If you have a story in mind and you're willing to say it, like, we're here for you.
Okay.
So I would say if you're worried about running one shots, you're scared, you're not quite sure in your skills, just one thing you have to acknowledge that you're only going to get better with practice. That running these one shots is probably going to be the best practice for you to get used to them, to get better at writing future ones. So taking that leap to start running one shots is going to be the way to start being more comfortable running them. Because no matter how much prep you do, how much you plan, how much you work, you're never going to feel the nervousness escape you. It's never going to make it feel better, because it only comes with experience and time. Does that comfort kind of come in, not with trying to overtly plan everything or waiting for the right time or making your story perfect. It's that experience. And just also the bar for enjoyment is not really high for a lot of people. We're not a server of critics or stuck up snobs. It's people come here to play for fun, for games. And as long as you come in with something that is that you have thought of, something that you want to share, people are going to enjoy that, no matter what.
Yeah, and from an administrative perspective, I want to tell you that we don't like have this insanely high bar. Like, we are not here to reject people. We're not looking to shoot people down. We want to help you accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. Like, if you want to run a one shot, we want you to run your one shot. Yes, we have certain things we're looking for. We want to make sure it's not a toxic game. We want to make sure you know what you're doing. We want to make sure it's going to run smoothly. We want to help you accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. We just want to make sure it goes through the right process and make sure everything's done correctly. But we're not here to outright reject anybody. We're not here to stonewall anybody. We're not here to gatekeep anybody. If you want to do this, we will help you do this. We just want to make sure it's done safely. We want to make sure it's done effectively. And we want to make sure that everybody has the support that they need to do said thing. So if that's what's holding you back, if you're afraid that, oh, I don't have friends on staff, I'm not going to get the thing, that's not held anybody back. That's not stopped anybody. I promise you that. Like, if you want it, you'll get it. If you're willing to go jump the couple of hoops that it takes to do it, you'll get the thing. The only reason those hoops are there is to make sure that it's safe, that it's done correctly, and that it's done well. That's all. That's the only reason those are there. It's not to gatekeep, and it's not to be to keep anyone out. That's all. My another question I would have is, what do you have you found, or what resources have you found are the most helpful to you in writing your one shots? What have you found has helped you the most in creating a good one shot outside of, your own creative genius, which each of you has plenty of? But what have you found resource wise has been most effective in the one shot writing and creation process? Nabbers.
Looking at the older source books, especially for Hunter, they have a lot of source books of multiple different types of one-shot chronicles that you can use. But if you obviously putting them into a format of Hunter, you can pick and choose out of those one-shots what sounds good or what helps right through what you're thinking of.
Chris.
Well, I would probably say just doing research into the area that you're looking at. Like I said, that whole mound thing, like that was really helpful in getting my story off the ground. I was just looking around the area, like that's all I did. I didn't do that for my next one, but that the next one's more, let's pop a silly idea in your head and just go with it. Why not? It's a one shot. Just do it. It's not canon anyway.
Jay.
So I find that a lot of my inspiration from one shots, released for World of Darkness, come to me from actually just going out and exploring certain areas, or just, around like Tampa or St. Pete, just kind of being in the areas, walking along the streets and kind of talking with people, just give me kind of ideas, seeing real life scenarios, real life places, seeing like a dark alley, wondering, I wonder what's going on down there, or a mysterious door on a building. You're just like, I don't know where that leads. I wonder where that would go. Just those kind of like small moments, just adding to, inspiration and helping me to describe what I want to do. It's going to be hard for me to describe St. Pete if I've never been there. So walking the streets, seeing what it's like, knowing what the culture is like, really helps with that experience.
Yeah, Google Street View has been such a lifesaver for me for telling scenes before, where I can just go to the Street View cam and be like, oh, that's what that intersection looks like. Now I can paint a really good word picture, or, get a really good feel for that area. It's been so helpful. Even if I live here, like, I'll forget what that particular intersection looks like, and I can go and really get refamiliarized with it in a moment. Another thing that I'll say, and I don't run a lot of one shots, but I'll tell you it's been super valuable in terms of storytelling. Read some of the pre-written one shots. Honestly, like it really does help with pacing. It does help remind you of what to include in stories. They get published for a reason. They do. Like, those go through a lot of hands. I have seen what the one shot writing process looks like now, having done these conventions. They have to get those signed off on by World of Darkness. So they do get written and edited and rewritten, and they have certain expectations and requirements to get officially signed off on. So if you go to the, Renegade website, if you look at some of those like $4.99 or $3.99 pre-written adventures, those are signed off on. See how they structure those one shots. See what they include on those one shots. See the roles they come up with. See how they pace those. Those are actually very valuable resources and tips to have. And you can kind of base, like, what's their mid-act break? What's their finale? What's their starting point? How did they pace it out? That can help you. I'm not saying to copy them exactly, but at least understand the way they paced it. That can be a helpful tool as well. So I definitely recommend that. Let's do our giveaway, and then we'll hear your final thoughts, and we'll put a bow on this thing. So, for the giveaway, for our dice, the winner of tonight's dice is Krazaz! Krazaz, you get those pink and clear dice. So one of our guests gets the dice. So Krazaz, I will be shipping those dice to you. Congratulations, my friend. Thank you for being a guest. And also, enjoy those pink and clear dice.
Yeah, we were just joking about this before we started.
We were joking about it before the stream. That's fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. We can do that mail exchange where I'll send you that storyteller screen.
Perfect. It'll be it. Yeah, I'll just hold the dice hostage until I get the storyteller screen.
Fair.
No, fantastic. So, Any final thoughts? Anything else you'd like to say about the one-shot process? Anything? Any thoughts that you'd like to pass on? Any encouragement to anybody out there? Nabbers.
Yeah. Sign up to either make one or play in one. It's a great time.
Absolutely. Kraz.
Yeah, it's not that much of a commitment. You just have to get everything nice and approved, make sure everything's right, and you know, just wait for the time to show up for that one shot if you just want to participate. Otherwise, I definitely recommend, you know, like I said, reaching out. Uh, don't get too worried about what exactly is there. If we have a problem with how the one shot is, we'll tell you. We can read it. So it should be fine. Everything's been going great so far. We've had quite a few people who basically just joined the server, sent us something after enjoying our company for a little bit, like Brent has, and now he's probably one of the most regular one-shot STs here. And we'd love to have him on sometime.
Absolutely.
And yeah, that's basically it. Look out for my next one shot coming probably around the first week of December, if just so that I'm not happening at the same time Brent's is at the end of November. Uh I'll get that into you, Kent, as soon as I can, but I've got it basically figured out. I just need to populate it, I guess.
Absolutely. Jay.
I would say, I feel like we need more people who are eager to play as well. Don't be afraid to sign up for one shots, to play in them. They are wonderful experiences. It's a great way to get introduced to other people as well, to meet more people on the server and get comfortable, with them, being able to play with them, besides community events you should also attend to. But it'd be great to see more participation from people on the server to the one shots. Also, I'm also planning a one shot in the near future, not actually as planned as Kraz, but I have one in the makings as well. So keep an eye on that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to say that we love people who participate in the community, whether it's running one shots, whether it's playing in one shots. Those are the people we look at first as storytellers, for people to join tables, for people to potentially join the staff, for people to become STs in the future. So if you have ambitions on the server to, join the staff, to join tables, that's the way to get seen. That's the way to get noticed. It's fine to submit forms. It's fine to, get on lists. It's fine to do all of that stuff. But the best way to get noticed is to just be visible, to be out there, to be a part of the community. And the best way to be active is to be a part of these things, to create, to contribute. And one shots are a great opportunity to do that. These three amazing individuals have done that, and they are seen, and they are a part of this community, and I am so grateful to each and every one of them because of that. They are amazing individuals, and I am so and I'm speaking like they're not here, but they are here. They are so incredible, and I'm so grateful to them for that. And that's why we have them on this show. That's why we promote them and we push through their one shots. And that's why Kraz is going to be having a table in the new year that I'm very excited to see what comes of that. That's why I'm very excited for Jay to be joining my second werewolf table. That's why Nabbers is always doing Nabbers chaos on the server. Like, they contribute, and therefore we acknowledge and promote them as much as possible. So do that yourself, and you can be a big part of this community, because we love having this community grow and succeed. That being said, I want to also do a little quick promotion here for our dear Nabbers TikTok. Go follow Nabbers on TikTok at NabbersRAR. That's RAWR on TikTok. You can see these lovely, I guess, memes, GIFs. I'm not sure what the kids call them there. Little fun hunter promo videos on TikTok. Go give Nabbers a follow there on TikTok. That's the only plug I really have. So go follow Nabbers on TikTok. It's fun. But also, go follow St. Pete on all social media. We do constantly post content now. Go follow us on YouTube, where you can catch up on all of our past shows. We had some wonderful shows come to a close, including our What the Hell Is That Chronicle, although I know that that group is coming up with a brand new chronicle in the next few months, so that's going to be exciting soon. We've got Rage Across Tampa, which the season finale of that should be coming up at the end of the year, which is the hunt for Bloody Mary. So that story should be coming to a head very, very soon. We've got Bloody Strings is coming to a climax of sorts pretty soon, so keep an eye on that. Obviously, catch up on the old episodes of After Dark. We've got lots and lots of content to be found everywhere. And if you're interested in the world of darkness, you've been watching this, wondering what the hell we've been talking about this whole time, come join our community on Discord. The link is down below. But for our wonderful guests, I am Kent saying thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Goodbye.